So as you start to come in, if you can let us know in the comments where you are joining us from, and if you are a community member, please just comment impact, right? Comment impact in the comments as well. We want to make sure that we shout out our Authors Impact Hub community members throughout our virtual authors Q&A. And then please ask questions, right? It's really important for us as we start to build engagement in our community that we interact, right? That we interact with our community members that are coming on tonight and they are sharing about their journey. So I am your host. I am the founder of the Authors Impact Hub, Juanita Woodson. I don't take that title lightly, right? I am super proud and honored to be your founder and your purpose pusher, right? So I'm here to push you to walk in your purpose and to get all of the tools and knowledge that you need to really walk fully in your purpose as an author to make an impact and profits, right? That's important. We pour a lot out as authors in our projects, right? We pour out time, money, and resources to become authors. So we are here to provide you with the tools, knowledge, and resources that you need to make an impact. So tonight we have two of our members on with us. We have Angela Harvey and we have Crystal Harrison on here to share with us about their books. They are not just one-time authors, right? They are multiple authors and they're going to share a little bit about their journeys tonight. So I'm going to pass the floor over to, we'll start with Angela. If you can share a little bit about your projects, where you are from.
All righty then. My name is Angela Harvey, and I am from Wake Forest, North Carolina, by way of Cleveland, Ohio. Actually spent some time, about 15 years, in Las Vegas, Nevada as well. My current project, actually, I have two books that I just dropped the beginning of October. One is called Poetic Alchemy, and it is a poetry self-help book that I'm so super proud of, and actually just blessed that I'm still here to see it happen. And then there's another project called A Transformed Heart, which is actually just the poetry from Poetic Alchemy, minus all the other stuff. I had heard from some people that they would want the poetry only book. And so I allowed that to happen. And then I have a book called, well, it's a coloring book, an adult coloring book called Colorful Growth. And it has 50 of my, I'm going to call my most popular sayings. I'm a motivational speaker. My favorite being, I refuse to be a first responder for folks who set their own fires. That's, yeah, absolutely one of my favorites. The other being, jumping to conclusions and running your mouth is not considered cardio. And so I actually love the journey that I'm on. I have to give you kudos and thanks, because in me doing all of this, I was just looking for resources wherever, and you came up and I joined your challenge, and it catapulted so many things in my head. But the biggest thing is that it absolutely gave me that push to be able to just kind of push things out. Besides being an author, I'm a motivational speaker and a growthologist. I teach grown folks how to grow up. I'm also a social worker and facilitator, and anything where I can help resuscitate lives and resurrect spirits, I'm all about it. And that's just a little bit about me and my stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. So listen, I need a copy of the coloring book. So one thing that
Right.
my parents have said throughout me growing up was lack of preparation on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. So when you said that, I was like, oh, I
Yes.
love that. Yes, I need it. Please send me that. I'm going to make sure I send you the Cash App so that I can get that. Thank you
Right.
so much.
Absolutely. I'll have it in the mail tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. And so we're going to pass it off to our next author. So I'm always honored, right? Listen, if I can, so I never like to introduce our authors, but I'm just going to share that the next author is my mama, Crystal Harrison. So I've had the honor, right? So when we think about legacy, we think that, our parents pass legacy on to us, right? But sometimes as a child, you're able to help your parents to create legacy, right? So I'm so honored that I have been able to help my parents to become published authors. So tonight we have on with us my mama, Crystal Harrison. So if you can just share a little bit about your journey and where you are from.
Yes, ma'am. I currently live in Chester, Pennsylvania, where my husband and we pastor your dad. We pastor a church at True Vine Missionary Full Gospel Baptist Church. And so our journey in writing started. I've always loved to write, and I thank God for Juanita because while I always wrote, I never published. And so I think for me, the publishing bug hit with my first book, How to Fight Fair in Marriage. And I will say that with that particular book, life happens, challenges happen. One of the things I tell when I'm preaching or teaching or even talking to my staff is I tell them, suck it up. Let's come up with a solution. Let's deal with it and figure out how to get out of what we're in. And for me, writing How to Fight Fair in Marriage showed me that we are more, as human beings, we are more resilient than what we think we are. And so that, is one of my favorite books. I recently wrote a children's book, a Bug's Life alphabet book. And so as an educator of over 30 years, education is one of my foundational passions. And so I love teaching, loved mentoring teachers, and just being able to make an impact in the lives of other individuals. Oftentimes we get to where God would like us to go, and we stop there. We never pull anyone else up. And if we pull them up, it comes with a charge. And so one of the things that I've always been passionate about is being able to just impart information that I know into other individuals. And so, again, I think I probably didn't introduce myself or give information. But again, been married for 37 years. We have 7 children. And, we are proud of each and every one of them. We've been able to watch the highs and the lows. But I will say this, individualized, our children come with different gifts and talents. I do thank Juanita because she is a pusher. And so she has been able to allow God to use that in her so that she can birth purpose out of other individuals. So I'm grateful for my daughter, Juanita.
Right.
Amen.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
appreciative to have you both on with us. So I'm excited to get into some discussion this evening, to learn a little bit more about your journeys as an author, and life in general, right? Because a lot of times our own personal life journeys is what pushes us to write and become published authors. So we're gonna start with I'm gonna ask this question and then we'll start with Crystal first. Listen, I'm saying Crystal, that's my mom, y'all. So I promise you I'm not being disrespectful when I say Crystal, but it's just because she's an author on the night. So we're gonna start with you, and then Angela, you can jump right in after she speaks to answer the question. So what inspired you to write your books?
For me, I think that as my husband and I were coming out of a challenge, and once we were able to define the direction or realign ourselves with God, I think for me, being able to share our testimony, our story with other individuals. Oftentimes we hear, our parents, and I remember my mother saying this, I'm trying to give you information so that you don't have to repeat the things that I did. And that was one of the inspirations for the book, was being able to share so that we could give information so that other people would not have to meet or go through some of the challenges that we went through in our marriage. It doesn't mean that marriage will never go through challenges, but we just wanted to be able to share our testimony.
All right. I love that. I love that. So what had happened was I found myself at the end of a relationship, broken and just at a place of being lost. And as a therapist and a motivational speaker, you know, between those two things, you would think I could rah myself up, and it just wasn't happening. And what came from that was the pain in me kept being dispensed in the form of poetry. And I didn't call myself a poet. I wasn't a poet beforehand. But this, whatever it was that was inside of me was coming out in forms of poems, and they weren't on paper. It was on backs of napkins and backs of envelopes and barf bags on the airplane and things of that nature. And even at that point, I wasn't thinking write a book, but at the end, I said what all people say when when they're in situations like, God, if you help me, I pass this. I promise to go get any and everybody and help them through this. I didn't know what that looked like. When I got to the poetry piece, I thought, I don't like poetry myself. Like, I wouldn't go buy a poetry book. Quiet as it's kept, I'm not even a reader of sorts. But I knew that if I was going to publish something, it was going to be something to help the people. And it wasn't until now that I'm able to say that poetry alone can be of help. I didn't know that. That wasn't what I knew. My thought was, no, I'm going to have to put some prompts. So I came up with these 7 intentions. So it's a poetry self-help book. It has 37 poems in it, and behind every poem are 7 intentions, and they include say it, Angie, emotional identification, self-awareness, application of knowledge, defining moments, word exploration, conversation starters, and self-expression. And there are 14 prompts and questions after every poem to try to get people to feel and to literally, it's my pain repurposed. And I didn't want to take the chance that someone was going to get it if they just read the poem. Being the therapist and recovering codependent that I am, you know, I had to put the prompts in there to make sure that this was going to be driven home. And I knew that for myself, if in fact I had experienced this, I knew that if misery loved company, I was in great company. I just didn't know who those people were. And I do believe that when God gave me the assignment, I'm not clear about who my assignment is. So I administer the medicine that comes from my mouth to any and everybody. And the book does just that. It allows someone to pick it up, and whether you want to or not, whether it's intentional or accidental, you growing somewhere by page 7. That's just the way I set it up to be. And it has been life-changing for me in a way that I did not expect. Another platform, it took my 8-year-old granddaughter to help me to understand. I made a movie. I have an award-winning documentary out called Black Rainbow Love. And she said, Gigi, last year you were unmuting Black LGBTQ voices, and this year you're unmuting your own. And that's exactly what happened, is me being able to produce this book, to be able to continue my healing journey and transformation, but also to assure that those people that pick it up, if they're open and they're willing, you're absolutely going to grow somewhere. Because when Angie Harvey speaks, shift happens. For sure.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. So we know that our purpose is not just for us, right? So sometimes we go through things and it prompts other people to grow. So we're able to use our pain and turn it into purpose when we're led by God, right? So that's one thing that I always love. So the next question, and then after this question, I'm going to open it up to the floor. So any of our guests who are on with us tonight, if you have some questions, now's the time to come. It will be the time right after this question to come off of mute and ask our author some questions. So our next question, how do you approach the writing process? So for some people, it's different. So something that has been common, right, in a lot of authors, we go through things and then we write, and we're able to take that pain and turn it into purpose almost, right? So what does that writing process look like for you?
We're going with.
We'll start with Angela and then go with.
Yeah, because I love Miss Angela's energy. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Look, I'm thinking to myself, that's her mama. I'm not going before her mama.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, for me, I think the difference is, one, like I said, I wasn't a poet, but I also didn't consider myself an author. In fact, when I took your class and you talked about the author's page, I'm like, an author page, that would indicate that I'm going to do more than one book. Like, why would I have an author's page? You know, thinking to myself. But the thing that came different for me was I wrote the poetry in 2019. Then the pandemic happened, and I had just moved from North Carolina to Texas, and I didn't know anybody in Texas. Well, I knew a lot of people. I had a fan base in Texas, but I didn't have any family and not very many close friends at all. And so the world shut down, and I just didn't I wasn't able to pick anything up. I wasn't able to write anything. Like literally, I remember when the last poem was written, that was in February of 2020. And because it was so much of my pain, I just couldn't pick. I wasn't in a emotional position to be able to pick that book up and go through it. I just was not. It couldn't happen. When I finally did, at the end of 2023, when I tell you the pain that came to me, and just knowing I wasn't reliving the pain, I was just thinking to myself, you made it through this. I tell people all the time, I do know I know that depression and suicidal ideations can happen even in the midst of you being productive.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would read these things and go, I cannot believe that I allowed this to happen to myself. It absolutely forced me to make a commitment to myself, and that is, I will never let me down again. I will not ever let me down again. It doesn't mean that I might not be put in situations, but I absolutely will not stay any place where I don't feel like I am safe. Emotionally safe, spiritually safe is just not going to happen. So the process for me was slow and over years. When I did pick it up and make a decision that I was going to use this pain and repurpose it in a way that was going to be able to help other people, it was something I still, because of the emotional connection I had to it, I still couldn't pick up every day. I literally had to pick it. It almost always had to be early morning, because that's when I commune with my God. Like, that's when I'm the strongest. Like, nothing can take me on that early in the morning. Closer to the evening and dark time is something about that. It was almost always in the morning. And I would just say to people, find your rhythm. You really and truly get to flow how you want to flow. And what's in you, in my head, I never worried about, oh, if I don't write it down or if I don't capture it, it's going to go away. Because baby, anything that yours comes back to you. If God gave it to you once, he's going to give it to you again. I don't worry about that. But it really was, it was a journey when I made a decision, not just that it was going to be a workbook, but there was going to be 7 intentions after every poem. And it was 37 poems. And if you add that up, that's 174 questions and prompts. And I didn't know if I had it in me, but I know I didn't want to halfway do it, because again, the people that I'm assigned to was expecting work from me in that way. So I literally had to work through the workbook again as I went through. And I think whether you're writing poetry or fiction or nonfiction, whatever that looks like, anytime you touch something, it's going to be work. And sometimes it's way emotional. Sometimes it could be physical. It could be a whole bunch of things. But I had to, when I tell you, I think I heard somebody, because I watched a few of your other podcasts, and she said, I should almost write a book about the process of me writing this book, because I ended up doing my own covers. This color book, I created the entire thing myself. And so it was absolutely a process. But here's what I know, honey, there's not anything I can't do. There's not anything that I can't do. And that was the blessing in it all, was that I produced something that is going to be fruitful, and also something that showed me that I have way more talents and skills than I ever thought possible. I didn't think I was a director, but I directed a movie. I didn't think I was an author, and I got a book. Didn't want to call myself a poet, even, and here I am with a poetry self-help book. And so, yeah, that's how it came out. That's how it came out, and how it's available to people. My journey.
Amen. Well, I think for me, one of the things, I'm a journaler. I like to journal. And so because I journal, I wanted to be able to use some of my journaling notes in my first book, How to Fight Fear in Marriage. But again, I go back to, I also wanted to be able to allow God to use me. I will say this, in my first book, I was pretty much like you, Miss Angela, in the sense of, I'm not an author, But one of the things that, you know, and I think self-doubt and these internal conversations sometimes will delay the process, because I kept having these internal conversations that, you know, as God was telling me to write this, and say this in the book. And I kept saying, well, who's going to read a book that Crystal wrote? Again, this is my first book. And so that was one of the things that kept coming to my mind. And mind you, and just full transparency, at this time while I'm writing the book, I'm thinking, I am out of here. I'm not doing this. You know, fight fair. What are you talking about? Who wants to do that? Nobody wants to fight fair in a relationship, not most often. But God continued to speak and continue to give me information. And so I just continue to forge through with the book. But for me, journaling is really important. Because if I don't, unlike you, if I don't write it down, I will forget it. God will sometimes, I do random thoughts on Facebook sometimes. And sometimes I'll get a random thought. And so if I don't jot it down right then, I'll forget it. And then you're right, because it will come back to me maybe a day or two later. And that's what I was supposed to type or write. And so, but I think journaling is big for me. I utilize the journaling, but I also think that oftentimes what I write is a personal experience. And so I write from my experience of what I've gone through or what I've experienced. I know with my first book, How to Fight Fair, I was surprised, because when it was published, I received so many emails, inboxes, texts, and thanking me for just being transparent and honest in the book, because I am transparent in the book. And oftentimes we leave that piece of who we are out. And so people don't really get the testimony and be able to get that opportunity at healing and understanding somebody is going through the same thing you did. And so there is a rainbow on the other side.
Right. Yes, Mom.
Yes,
ma'am.
Listen, I love it. When I see my mom's random thoughts on Facebook, I'm like, those are not random. But if you have an opportunity, if you have an opportunity to read them, you'll probably be able to resonate. So I want to open the floor to our guests who are on with us tonight, whether you drop it in the comments and I read it out for you, or you come off of mute and ask our guests some questions about what you have heard so far before we go into some more questions tonight. So please don't be afraid to come off of mute and engage tonight. We want to be able to hear your voices as well.
Well, I know I got a couple of 1, 2, 3, 3 friends that I know is on there, and I know they all talk. So
that sounds like a challenge, Miss Angela.
That's right. Because my folks will tell you, honey, listen, we all need to grow. So yes.
Hey, I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
There you go. We can
This
do that.
one can't do anything. She can't do anything. I've known her for 40 plus years. And she's an amazing human being, and the book is awesome, and you're inspiring me to get back on my own writing. I do a little bit different writing than y'all do. Well, closer to Angie's, I guess, with poetry, but I'm a songwriter and I need to start writing again. So thank you, my friend. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Listen, I write songs too, and a long time ago. So I'm always encouraged when I hear people do it. I'm like, I need to start writing songs and singing again. I don't do it anymore, but as I get older, I'm like, I need to tap into that lane.
You definitely do. She has a beautiful voice.
Oh, and you can sing too? Oh,
yes, ma'am.
That's not fair.
And I will say this, she did not get it from her mother.
Listen.
Okay.
So the floor is still open to ask questions to our guests. If you want to drop it in the comments, if you're afraid to come off of mute, please don't be, because if you are an author, I promise you, I will have you on for a meet and greet as well. So we'll be able to hear your voice. So now is the time to be able to maybe break off that fear and come off of mute and share some questions and engage with our authors tonight.
Hi, this is Alnisa, and I have a question, Juanita, if that's okay.
Yes, definitely.
So my question is for Angela. Of the 7 intentions that you placed in this wonderful book, which one was the one that was most challenging, that really had you to dig deep?
Actually, I don't have one. It actually is going to be 2. The first one being the emotional identification. I'm amazing at identifying my emotions. I've been telling people for years that fine, okay, and good are not emotions, and you can't manage what you can't identify. So literally, I keep emotional wheels right by my, whenever somebody says something, oh, I'm good, like, baby, you want to come better than good. Emotional identification was difficult for me because I remember my therapist saying things like PTSD, fear, words that I don't employ as a person. And I'm like, PTSD was a relationship. Like, what are you talking about, lady? Like, I didn't get it. I had to go deeper and grow deeper than I've ever had to go with my emotions in order for me to be able to manage them better. Some of my crying every day, and I'm one of those people that could cry all day. Came directly from me not being able to identify something, because in my head, I didn't want that to be the truth. I didn't want to know that I was being abandoned and feeling rejected and feeling less than and unworthy. That was not Angela Harvey. Everybody that knows me knows this Angela Harvey. So being in that place was very, very difficult. So even coming up with the questions then became easier, because most of those questions I had to ask myself. Like, okay, Angie, what is this making you feel? And I had to go to the emotional wheel as if I wasn't a therapist, as if I wasn't a social worker. But the one that really and truly is challenging now is the application of knowledge. And I think one of the biggest sins in the world is to teach and not teach application, because people can say they read a self-help book but not know how to apply it. They could go to church and get a good word but not know how to apply it. Right. In my head, if you can't grow from it, you might as well have not read it. Right. And that's challenging now, because I'm having then to go and grow places that I thought I was already grown in. I'm like, okay, then. So as a recovering codependent, that looks drastically different, because now I got boundaries. I know how to say no. Got all these things happening and going on. And it's me having to lose people, me having to spend time in isolation, because guess what? Folks, one of the things in my book says that, you will be invited everywhere until you accompanied by your truth. And then people don't want you at their party. And some of that has come up for me, in that the better I get at the applying knowledge, it seems like the more isolated I become, because folks aren't able to roll with that. So the application of knowledge was very challenging, and it was actually challenging to come up with the questions for that, because I knew for myself that people aren't going to do, like, they're not getting ready to, I had a focus group to actually review my book, and they told me, put the questions in another book, put them in the back of the book. Like, they didn't want us, they wanted no parts of those questions. They were too hard, too deep. They made them go to, and they just did not want to happen. I said, well, I'm not going to do that. And so it's challenging. I will admit that it's challenging to hear information. It's good to say something is good. If you hear a song and you think it's good, you repeat it over and over and over again. You get in the car, you listen to it, you get knowledge and it's good to you. You just go, oh yeah, that was a good book, and you put it back on the shelf. So it's very difficult to apply knowledge. And I let people know that it is going to be challenging. There's nothing in that book that's going to be easy, especially if you're new to it. And thank you very much, Anissa, for being here, for one, and for growing with me. She's the one person I think I've sent a link to about everything, because she inhales the knowledge like, oh yeah, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. And I know she's growing some places. So, and she lets me know it. I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Angela. I think that you dropped some gems on us. So any other questions that any of our guests may have before we move on to the next question?
I have a question for your mom. I want to know if you had those thoughts that you had about people not wanting to read your stuff. Did you have any pushback from people that were close to you? Like maybe like, Mom, why you get so personal in the book? Or why did you do this way? Did you have any, I'm saying pushback, but did you get any adverse comments or feedback from your book?
I will say not directly, but indirectly.
Okay.
One of the comments that I did hear, you know how we send things down the talking telephone line, and then it gets back that, you know, the thought was that the individual really wished that I had not written the book because it shared personal information.
Mm.
And while I do share personal information in the book, I think that one of the things that God did for me was He helped me to groom, and you have to know what to put in and what not to put in. Because God and I were having these conversations, and He would say, write this. And I would literally, I thought I was losing my mind at one point. He would say, put this in there. And I would say, no, we're not putting that in there. Ultimately, it ended up in the book because we know who's in charge. But yes, there was pushback. Someone close to me, and I'm okay with that, because one of the things that God has also shown me through this journey is that it's a journey that we have to walk together. My husband, God, and myself. And so as long as we can come into unity to know that what we share as a testimony is going to benefit someone else, it's really not about us. It's about being a blessing to others. One of the chapters in the book is IRS. And I kind of went back and forth, which is intimacy, romance, and sex. And, you know, we don't talk about certain things in public. And so, you know, kind of went back and forth about even putting that section in there. But I honestly believe that folks need to hear truth in order to operate effectively in marriage. Marriage is almost like a business agreement. And so people don't see it like that. They just see it as, okay, you fell in love, now what?
Right.
Well, there has to be a what after the now what. But yes, to answer your question, yes, there was pushback.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to know I just wanted to be sure I wasn't the only person. That's all.
No, absolutely not. You know, and here's the thing. I even had some people that family folks that would say, well, I didn't purchase the book because I'm not married.
Mhm.
And for me, I understand that. I definitely do. But it's also about support.
Right.
And so,
And it's interesting you would say that, because I'm having a a different type of conversation.
mhm,
I am I said to somebody the other day, I'm not looking for support, I'm looking for a save.
come on.
So if I'm okay with you not buying the book, I really am.
Uh-huh.
What I'm not okay with is you buying the book and not reading the book, or you
Right.
buy the book and not giving it to somebody else. And so one of the things that it was put on, I mean, the whole purpose of me being so transparent, because transparency sheds shame. And so there's nothing in the book that I'm ashamed of at all. There's nothing in the book that I've lived a transparent life, and by example, on purpose, out of obediency. And I'm very clear with people, listen, get the book, and not, I mean, I just think it's not right. So if you're gonna get the book, read a little bit of the book. And I tell people all the time, I promise you, if you spend 15 minutes in it, it'll give you enough to either make you think. And one of the great things I love about who I am, once I get in your ear, you can't shake me.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll be ordering my copy.
Yes. Yes. Once I get in your ear, it's on and popping, for sure and for
Yes,
certain.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask you a question? In
Absolutely.
regards to your book, do you have a I guess a something online that you do, a discussion forum?
I absolutely started in Jan. Good question, Mom. I have started in January. I'm going to do a book club that I'm actually going to facilitate myself, and then I have a curriculum around my coloring book, which teaches people how to meditate and how to use this colorful growth thing for the benefit of their own mental health and wellness. And then I'm going to do a loss group, and loss stands for leaning on shared support, because I know that when people experience non-death losses, I've lost many friends, I lost some of my sociability. For a long time, I was on protective, I had my own self on protective custody. I've lost some of my skills. I stutter, and I was going days without human contact and beginning to stutter again because I'm not using my words. So I want to start a group where people can talk about those non-death losses and be able to have support in that way. And then I got it from your daughter. I love the challenges. I love what challenges do. You got a whole bunch of people going in the same direction for different reasons, but they have that shared support. And I came up with an acronym for challenges, and I'm going to customize challenges for people, whether it's your friend group or whether it's a work group or whether it's a company. And so I have a lot of different things that are going to begin in January. And I'm very excited about that, because I thought to myself, I got all these things that can make money but also be able to produce growth in people. And now I have to figure out ways to be able to get to people. So I'm following your daughter with all of that. Like, okay,
Wow.
I
Well,
love it. I love it.
Not-
I love it.
move like that.
Look, if I can, because I know, listen, we can go. If I can, because I want to make sure that we had another one of our guests on tonight who had a question for our authors. So I want to
Okay.
make sure, author, you had a question. If you can jump in with your question.
First off, thank you all. You've given some wonderful jewels. I have notes down and quotes for you all. So, but to Ms. Harrison, you said something about self-doubt and internal conversations. How did you go beyond that self-doubt and internal conversations? Because as writers, I believe a lot of us are really so deep into our own head that we could talk ourselves out of anything when we know that we should be, so how did you move beyond that?
I think, well, for me, the first thing was being able to have that relationship with God and being able to hear his voice over my voice. Because oftentimes what we do is we turn down the volume on God. And so for me, I had to turn the volume back up so that I was listening to exactly what he needed for me to hear. The other thing is, I think it's strategic to be able to have individuals in your life that can push and guide you in the direction that you need to go, especially when you're struggling with completing a project, because it's easy to put it down. It's easy to put it down, but not pick it up. And so for me, I want to, again, kudos to my daughter, Juanita, because even with, we have some challenges happening right now, and she just has that infinite ability to just push people gently, just with her words. And I think that's important to have those folks in your corner. One of the things I talk about in my book is going back to our corners and being able to reassess. And sometimes we have to do that. We have to go back in our corner and reassess the situation so that we can, when we come out with the boxing gloves on, we're ready to tackle.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I love that. I love the feedback. I love the engagement. So we're gonna move on with our next question. Listen, I promise you, I'm not stopping the two of you from engaging. I love the conversation. I just want to make sure that we do leave room for our guests to be able to ask you all questions, but please do not stop asking each other questions. I think it's an impactful conversation. So author actually opened up the door for our next question, right? So what challenges have you faced as an author, and then how have you overcome those challenges? So we'll start with Crystal, and then we'll jump to Angela.
So I think writer's block. And again, I've authored books, but I don't necessarily, when I look in the mirror, see an author. I just see someone who loves to write. And so I think that for me, when I go through a challenge in life, I write. And so when that writer's block come, I have to go back to my corner and reassess the situation. Miss Angela said something earlier because she said her writing is in the morning. She likes to, get up in the morning, and that's high time energy for me because I'm a principal at a school. So for me, I'll get up at maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning with a bright idea and just get up and start typing or writing. And so that's for me what I do.
Yeah. For me, some of the challenges initially looked like me having to do this alone. So I didn't, you talk about support. I have a little note right here, and God was really clear that I was being hidden and preserved and prepared and positioned and protected. And so where I wanted, I wanted I wanted these people to, like ask me what my book is about, or ask me, and I didn't have any of that. It literally was me and God. Because God, I think, knew that the codependent in me would have listened to that other person and say, oh, you don't need to do that, or don't change this. And so literally I've had to do a lot of things alone and by myself, just me, inward and upward, I say. And I think the other thing, unlike on the opposite of your mother, like literally I have a poetry book that's 216 pages. So literally when I tell you that I had the other challenge was for me is that I had so much information. I was going, okay, Angie, wait a minute. You can't, your first out the gate can't be 200 plus pages. I'm like, nobody's going to take you seriously. I mean, literally, so I had just the opposite come where it would just flood it. This was kept coming and come, like literally sleeping with the computer in my bed, like, okay, get it off of me. And so that was just the opposite. Like, okay, at some point it was beginning to be a whole nother book. So just stop it. So yeah. So just know now that it can come both ways. Either you got a block or you got a floodgate gone. So yeah, that's the way it went down with me.
I love that. Listen, so as a publisher, and you said I have 200 plus, so I'm just like, I know when I'm having conversations with my authors, I'm just like, okay, are we doing, what are we doing? Are we doing one book or are we doing two? So yes.
I'm sorry, I'm one of those people. Sorry.
Yes, I love that. I love that though. So I love the transparency and being able to share what your challenges have been, but then also how you overcame those challenges. So I know we have some other authors on with us, or we have some writers who are wanting to become published authors. So if there's any questions right now about the process, now is a great time to come off of mute or share it in the chat and ask your questions to our authors.
And I'll just share that. So I was able to acceptance of the fact that there wasn't supposed to be a support team or a rah-rah team for me. That helped me get past that. The other thing is that I had to be okay with everything that was in the book is what was needed in the book. That was so, and that helped me, like, okay, Angie, so it's not you just talking too much or, putting too much in it. Everything that was needed. And then, of course, the editor went through, and it probably could have been 400 pages if I didn't, but it came down to being what was supposed to happen in the book.
I think, Miss Angela, one of the things for me was trying to find that equilibrium, if you will, in how to promote my book was a challenge for me. And so even today, I know that we have the Authors Hub that has been a great blessing. And so I'm able to, but even with that, you always have this voice in the back of your head. Okay, but how are you going to make this work? And so just trying to manipulate or maneuver around those.
Well, if I can talk to the imposter syndrome, right? Because a lot of times, not to butt in, but a lot of times it's the imposter syndrome, right? That comes in and tells us the thing that God gifted us to do. Imposter syndrome is on one shoulder and God's voice is on the other shoulder. So sometimes we just have to say, okay, which voice are we going to let be the loudest, right? Are we going to let God, who gave us the gift and the idea and the ability to do the thing, be louder than the imposter syndrome that's telling us that we can't do it. So sometimes that's just what it is, right? Identifying who our audience is, who are we supposed to be speaking to, because it's not everybody, right?
Right.
Everybody is not for what is in us, right? Everybody is not our target audience, and that's okay, right? Because maybe in one season in life they will be, and your book is there to be a solution to the problem when that's their problem. But you have to go and you got to figure out whose problem are you supposed to be solving, right? And that just makes life a little bit easier. When it's time to market your book, figure out what the problem is, and then you are the solution. Who needs you to solve their problem, and you go and find those people. So there it is. I just wanted to share that.
That was good.
And
And I
you shared
like how
that
you
very well.
phrased that. Yes.
In the challenge, I remember you saying just that. And one of the things I keep in my head, which keeps me going, is that there's still people that you haven't reached. There's the people that's supposed to have this book, and they're probably going to need to see and hear from you. And that'll keep me doing that, going and growing wherever I go. Like I carry books in my car. Anytime I've sold them to my chiropractor, people at the grocery store, because I don't know where all of those people are. So I take it everywhere. I learned that in my challenge.
Absolutely.
Miss Angela, I think you and I are going to be talking offline at some point.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I love that. I love it. This is what the Authors Impact Hub is all about, right? It's making those connections, it's being able to support each other. So I want to open the floor back up. Any of our authors or guests who are on with us, if you have any other questions, please feel free to come off of mute or drop it in the chat. And please don't be shy. And as you are thinking about it, so I'm just going to ask both of our authors, and we'll start with Angela. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring author?
As best you can, don't second guess yourself. Really and truly allow whatever it is that's in you to flow, even if you don't know what it's going to look like in the end, because I had no idea as I'm attempting to just prop myself up with this poetry. I had no idea it was going to equal a book. And God knows enough about me that he didn't give me all of the picture at one time. Just got the poetry. Okay, then maybe we should make a self-help book. And now he's like, okay, well, maybe we should do a little programming around this. And now then as a keynote speaker, like literally I'm looking for representation to be able to, because now then I have a keynote and a word that I can give people that comes from my book and my coloring book. I didn't think all of that in 2019. I was like, listen, I just need to make it till in the morning. And so whatever it is that's in you, allow it to come out naturally. You don't need to piece it together. It doesn't even have to make sense to you. Allow it to flow until you know. Ooh, that'll preach. Ooh.
Oh, I like that.
Yes, allow it to flow till you know.
I like that. I would say ditto what Miss Angela just said. Pace yourself, but also the Bible says write the vision. And so write it out, but pace yourself at the same time. And one thing Miss Angela said, don't second guess yourself. Again, we, oftentimes as writers, we second guess ourselves. Just write. I remember my husband saying to a psalmist, and so he said to her, he said, just sing. Just sing. And you probably know who I'm talking about, Juanita. And so, she's an amazing psalmist, writes music and sings. And as a writer, I would just say, just write, but write from the heart.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Because sometimes we don't do the things that we're supposed to do because we're waiting for it to be perfect, right? But sometimes it's never going to be perfect unless you involve the person who gave you the gift, right? He gave you that gift to perfect the thing. It's not going to be perfect until we involved him in it. So just write and let him perfect it. So this has been an amazing conversation. I love it. I love this. I love the engagement. This is what the Authors Impact Hub is all about. So I don't want to take away from an opportunity before we get you both to share how we can connect with you and any other future projects that you may have coming up. If there's any other questions that you've thought of as you've heard both of our authors speak tonight, now is the time to come off of mute. I think we see Deborah with her hand up. Did you have a question?
Is that a
Okay.
Holy Ghost hand or is that the hand?
It might be. All right. If you're afraid to come off of mute, you can drop it in the chat. We would love to hear from you if you have a question for our authors tonight. Authors, if you have a question for each other, please come off of mute. I know that I jumped in earlier, but I don't want to, stop the opportunity. Okay, for you to be able to speak.
What keeps you growing in that place? And that piece is very important because people need to hear from everybody.
And I think that we did have a question. So I'm not sure who iPhone 2 is. So I'm just going to say iPhone 2 because that's the way it pops up for me. As authors, why are we so hard on ourselves? That's a really good question. So we'll start with Crystal, if you can jump in and answer that question, and then Angela.
I think as authors, one of the things being hard on ourselves is because we're presenting ourselves to the public. And oftentimes we don't want to seem, what is the word I would like to use? Uncoached, unprepared. And so we don't want, for lack of better word, we don't want folks to see that that naked piece of us. We want to be able to present it and it be a benefit and a life changer to them. But oftentimes we do want to make sure that it's perfect. Again, I'm working on a project right now that has not been resubmitted because I'm trying to find I guess, if you will, the perfect words. And so we, again, without God, it's not going to be successful. And so just being able to surrender our will and our mind and our thoughts to him so that, he can lead and guide us. But again, I think that's one of the bigger reasons is because we don't want to seem as if we're unprepared in what we present.
I'm just going to make this quick, fast, and in a hurry. I'm so hard on myself because I was raised in a space and place where people were hard on me. And so I consistently hear the tape and I've remixed it and remastered it where, who do you think you are? What makes what you say so important? Why you think because you have a college degree? I mean, so literally, and my editor had to say to me, Angie, this is going to hold a lot more weight if you put your credentials on the front. I wanted, if I could have did it without my name, that's how literally that's how much I was challenged. So that, and I think everybody in some places can be hard on themselves, especially when they're presenting something to the public. But most of mine came from me thinking to myself, here you go with another title. First you was an author, now you was this, now you was this. And so it's a great thing until your family, your friends are saying that it's not.
But you know what, Miss Angela, I know you're right because those are the words. My parents were old school parents. So bring home a C, that's all you got. You can't do better than a C. And so those were the kind of things that we grew up with was even though you tried to do your best, oftentimes the best was also challenged. And I think growing up in that environment has played a huge role in my life because I'm always thinking, okay, if I do this, how can I do it better?
Right.
Yeah.
And the piece I think that's very important. I understand that someone said to me, Angie, a friend that was just helping me, she said, maybe it's too much. And when she said maybe it's too much in 2022, I won Miss Full Figure North Carolina. I won a beauty pageant. Then I had an award-winning movie. And now I got this book. So for me, it's like, okay, all of these amazing things. And people are like, okay, yeah, you did something else. Okay, you did something else. And so that comes into play too. And I love how you have two guests, your mom and me and we literally come in with the same flavor, but we're getting it for two different reasons in two different places. So we giving y'all your money's worth tonight for sure.
Miss Angela, you have perfected that. I don't know how to do that yet, but you have perfected it.
Yeah. And I just want to jump in and I just want to share. And then I know we have two hands up. I hope I'm not looking crazy, but I think I see two hands up. But I just want to share that comparison is the thief of joy, right? And sometimes you'll get on social media, you'll turn the TV on, you'll go to the library, bookstores, and you'll see all of the things that everybody else is doing. And you'll say, there's no way in the world that I can do that. So you'll dummy down the calling or the gift that is for you, and you'll say that I'm not good enough because it doesn't look like what everybody else has done, when in fact that's not true, right? So this is why it's important to know who you're supposed to be talking to, who is your target audience, right? And you go after those people, so then you won't compare yourself to everybody else in the world, and you'll think that I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not handsome enough, my words don't matter because it doesn't look like or it doesn't sound like what everybody else has done, because you're comparing yourself, right? So we want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves on the back burner because we're comparing ourselves to what everybody else has done. So I just want to say that because in real life, comparison is the thief of joy, and that is the reason why it is so hard for ourselves as authors, as creatives, as business owners, as speakers to do the things that we're supposed to do, because we're looking at what everybody else is doing and we're not doing it because it doesn't look like what they are doing. So I just wanted to share that, right?
That's good. That's good.
So do the things that you're supposed to do because it's supposed to touch the people that you're supposed to touch. Okay. So we're going to start. I'm going to jump back to you, Miss Deborah. So I see your hand up. This is the second time. If you want to come off of mute, if you have a question,
Yeah.
please, we want to hear from you.
Yes, I have. I'm sorry, I'm new to the game, so I couldn't figure out how to unmute.
You are
Sadly.
good.
Anyways, first of all, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me. And I was joining this Zoom call. And I just want to say, on the whole opposite end of that spectrum, my question was to Crystal and Angela. What does it feel like to know that you touch people's lives in such an amazing, positive way?
One of the things in knowing that you're touching people's lives, it gives you the desire to continue to go forward. Even in writing and knowing that you're making an impact in people's life, it just, it's an exciting feeling to know that somebody was touched by something that you wrote, by something that you said to them. If I can just share a little bit today, I had an appointment, and just to be able to have a conversation that I had with this particular individual and know that you make an impact in somebody's life for the better is just an awesome feeling. Like I am on my assignment is what that feels like.
Yes. For me, it's just a wow. That I'm blessed enough to be able to be impactful to other people. And I have an amazing, I told you I'm the acronym queen. My acronym for impact is intentionally motivating people to act, change, and transform. And it's the name of my publishing company. It's the name of my production company. I put impact in there because I know that's my assignment. And when you're on assignment, listen, it just is. I'm just grateful that I say all the time, I cannot believe that God chose me, a stutterer, the fat girl, the bald chick, whatever it is, chose me to be able to do this. So it's a blessing, but it was a lifesaver because when I did not want to be here, my assignment kept me producing and kept me here.
Miss Angela, if I can just kind of piggyback on something you said, when you speak about the stutter piece, first of all, I don't hear that.
Yeah.
And so the second thing is because for me, this is a challenge for me because this is a different forum. And so I can stand in front of my teachers, children, because my background is education. I can do that and, flow well. But this forum, I feel nervous. And so, again, it's an honor just to be able to be used. And so I definitely would agree with you.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. And I think we have another question before we get ready to wrap up for the evening. Alnisa, am I saying your name correctly? I hope so. Alnisa, I think you had a question.
Yes, that's correct. Juanita, thank you for recognizing my hand. So I have two questions, and they're not related. They just came up for me. And this is for both authors. The first is, in this society where ratings and reviews seem to be taking precedence over the quality of our work, how do you handle the naysayers or individuals who have opposing views and would post that in your about your work? That's one. And the second question is, because I struggle with this myself, how do you continue to be yourself and not have your story define you?
Oh, here's what I'm going to say about naysayers. I allow myself to be fueled by haters. Like, haters got me to the place that I am. Tell me what I can't do, and then look out, because I'm about to get it done. And that really is, I teach people about the power of your mind. So I could tell myself a horror story, or I could tell me a story that serves me. And so even if somebody was to go and say something negative about something I wrote, I mean, I've been in this game for a long time. People have long since, and I do know that you can't even give growth away, let alone try to sell it. I'm expecting there to be haters, but I also know the 4 agreements. It's not anything personal. Someone coming across in that way only has problems with themselves. They don't have problems with me because they don't know me. And that's the way I'm able to keep growing forward. Your story should define you. It just should not cripple you. Your story is, our lessons are some of our most crucial lessons are learned in the valley. In that valley where things are dark and you feel like you can't come from, that's where we are molded and shaped for the mountaintop. So it's okay for you to be defined by that, but don't be debilitated by that. Don't be drowned by that. And there's nothing wrong with your story. There's nothing wrong with my story. It ain't nothing wrong with Krista's story. There ain't nothing wrong with Juanita's story. Nothing wrong with our story at all. It's our story. And look what we're doing. We're taking our story that had us twisted and mangled. I was a 50-year-old who had not had a definition of love, sitting in a fetal position on the floor, and sleeping on somebody's air mattress. I used that story to define who I was, to position myself to be in this place. There's nothing wrong with your story. Accept the definition, because that's how you get places. You're aware of what it is, be accepting of it, and then take action and do the aftercare. That's how you bring your A game. That's how you grow. That's how you transform.
So to follow that up, I cannot. I am going to agree with Miss Angela. I would say for me, also, I think that if we're unwilling to be critiqued, then that means we're unwilling to grow. Because while the criticism may not necessarily always be accurate, we should always be willing to look at it and see if there's a lesson in it. As for the second question, I think for me, my story, I'm not defined by what I've gone through. But what I've gone through has tried to define me and keep me in that place. I'm not in that place anymore. But when I was in that place is what caused me or pushed me out or kicked me in order to cause me to grow and become the individual that I am today.
Yeah.
Okay, mic drop, Mom.
Listen, I love this. So I was like, okay, I was short an author tonight. We were supposed to have 3. So I'm so glad that this made the impact that it needed to make. I'm so appreciative of the engagement and the questions. So I want to make sure I give both of our authors an opportunity to be able to share how we can connect with you on social media, and then also how can we purchase a copy of your book. So we'll start with you, Crystal, and then go to Angela.
Yes, ma'am. So you can go to my Facebook page, which is Crystal D. Harrison. And then I have a Facebook page, Heart to Heart, which is a mentoring, a girls mentoring program that I do as well. My website is, what is my, hold on, I'm sorry. My website is cdhministries.com. I apologize. I just had to see, there we go. Drew that total blank right there.
Right. No worries. The books are available on Amazon. The coloring book and the books are also, if you wanted me to what do you call it, autograph, which is a whole nother thing that I have to get used to because I am so not used to people standing in line to get my autograph. Like, who am I? But anyway, on my website, Angela Harvey Speaks, AngieHarveySpeaks.com. And from there, you can go to all of my social media, which is all Angie Harvey Speaks. And then I do have a separate IG page for the book, but all of that you can get through the actual website.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I will be ordering through your page so I can get an autograph copy. My books are also on Amazon, but I will be taking care of that later tonight so I can get my copy.
Yes, absolutely. Go to their website, support them directly. Listen, we don't want to have to wait for Amazon royalties to come in. I am an author coach, marketing coach. I'm gonna always send you directly to the website to get from our authors. So yes, so thank you so much for jumping in with us tonight. Thank you for engaging and asking the questions. We will have the replay live on YouTube later in the week. So we want to make sure that you go and share this, right? Share this with someone who needed to hear all of the amazing things that our authors shared. This has been great. So you want to make sure that you join us next month, our last virtual author meet and greet for 2024 on December 14th. So we will have one of our authors on with us tonight, right? We'll have Author Smith on with us on December 14th. We'll hear about his journey and listen to him drop some gems as well. If you are not a part of the Authors Impact Hub, what are you waiting for? You want to make sure that you go and join us. We are kicking off our final challenge for 2024. It's a free challenge to join. We'll have some giveaways. It's fun. It's exciting. We wanted to end on a good note, right? We wanted to end being able to give some giveaways and a thank you for being able to build our community and engaging with our community. So make sure that you go and join. It starts on December 15th. So we'll share the link so that you can join. As always, thank you all so much for joining another Virtual Authors Impact Hub, Virtual Author Meet and Greet. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, guests. Until next time, take care.
Thank you, Juanita.
Thank you.
Miss Angela, I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's definitely my pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Juanita.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa and Mary, for showing up.
Thank you so much.